triumphant scenes in the Libyan city of Benghazi. The regime, which had been in power for more than 40 years, had been toppled, and international leaders were queuing up to join Libyans in their celebration.
Your city was an inspiration to the world as you threw off a dictator and chose freedom.
Today, though, no Western politicians come here. It's seen as too dangerous. And that's because Libya is a country divided. Great swathes, especially in the east, are controlled by militia like these. Rebels who fought against Gaddafi now oppose a government they say stole the revolution from them. That instability was brought into sharp focus last week with the brief kidnapping of the country's Prime Minister, Ali Zidane. And it's economically as well as politically damaging, not least because money that could be put into things like infrastructure and industry is being diverted elsewhere.
The government has had no choice but to agree to massive payments to various militias because their own capability is so low. They've been talking about creating an army for a long time, but they have largely failed. According to one report I saw, the government had just approved around $700 million for a militia, the members of which were among those responsible for the kidnapping of Zidane.
With Libya's economy tipped to grow by nearly 20% this year, foreign investors have been keeping a close eye on it. But a lack of stable government poses another dilemma.
One of the biggest problems that are facing investors is that it's not clear who they should be speaking to. It's not clear how much authority does this government have. It's not clear whether or not this government is going to be in place in a few months' time. And the central government itself doesn't seem to have a clear enough mandate that would allow it to go ahead and engage with foreign companies.
The oil which should flow from these and other terminals is Libya's main source of wealth. But production, which was at 1.4 million barrels a day, close to pre-war levels, has recently dipped as low as 200,000 barrels. And that's mainly because the militia have shut much of the industry down, and they won't resume production until the east of the country, which has most of the oil, gets most of the revenue. That interference is another blow for international energy firms in Libya.
Some of the companies that were quite well established and were actually producing significantly in Libya, of course they aim to get back as soon as possible and get their operations back to normal. But of course over the longer term it means it's very hard to invest in new projects and new fields, and we have seen a couple of companies that were only interested in exploration in Libya actually withdrawing because it was hard to carry out those operations.
It isn't all about big business. Sarah helps run an organisation teaching Libyan women business, computer and language skills. A lack of security or certainty doesn't help them either. But she says Libyans struggling to adapt to life after revolution is another real issue for business.
During the 40-plus years of Gaddafi's regime, the education was so poor, just generally all across the board. Integrity is something that's lacking. Now, in other aspects, I find quite challenging in terms of my work is getting full commitment from people, especially from the young. And I think it's a lot to do with the current youth is so eager to try and explore so many different opportunities that are out there, whether it comes to civil society, whether it comes to work opportunities, business opportunities. So they're still quite lost, but there's that huge hunger to explore and to experience.
In parts of Libya, especially the capital Tripoli, many residents say life is improving. But the economic progress longed for after revolution still feels a very long way off.